Are you in love with God? Are you in love with God? That's a question that we Christians are going to have to ask sooner or later in our lives. We have to ask that question, am I in love with God? In our gospel, we hear John speak to us of how Jesus has sent the Holy Spirit into our hearts. And so the Holy Spirit, in Romans 5:5, St. Paul tells us that God pours the Holy Spirit into our hearts, pours the love of God into our hearts by the Holy Spirit 24/7. So God is always pouring his Spirit into our hearts. And so what John would say is, yes, you are in love with God. You may not have figured it out yet. You may not have figured out how it feels, but you have the feelings of it. You just haven't figured it out yet. You are in love with God. And the reason that he says that is that I think part of the times we think, well, I don't feel like I'm in love with, I don't feel God. I don't feel love for God all the time. But part of what's going on is that we're looking for the wrong feelings. We're looking for the kind of emotional feelings, and sometimes those are there. But that's not how the Holy Spirit feels. The Holy Spirit is not a feeling. The Holy Spirit is a drive that has feelings that come with it. Sometimes they're there and sometimes they're not. But the Holy Spirit is the drive in our hearts. It's the fire in our guts. It's the drive that drives us towards truth and goodness and beauty and community and love and goodness. There is a drive in us. There's a pull. We can feel the pull inside of our consciousness that's pulling us towards goodness and truth and God and love and community, holiness. That pull inside of our consciousness is the energy of the Holy Spirit. And so we can mistake what the Holy Spirit feels like. So there's a woman recently that I heard in an interview. She's a scientist, and she said, when I was a little girl, I wanted to know if God was real. I had this great burning desire to know if God was real. And so I set out on a journey for my life, and I went and got a degree, and I decided that I needed to become a scientist to see if God was real, and I became a scientist, and I got another degree. She got a PhD. She works in atomic particle research. She said, I finally decided after a lifetime of searching that there is no God. Now, that would just be funny to a Christian. That's just like, you got to be kidding me. That's hysterical. Who do you think gave you the drive to spend your whole life looking for him? You might have decided up here that you don't believe in this or that, but where did the drive come from that you spent your life looking for it? You decided to follow the drive, but you didn't decide to have the drive in the first place. Where did the drive come from? That's the Holy Spirit. That is that Spirit. Why would you spend your life following through all of the difficulties of 3 degrees and all of the lifelong work and difficulty to find the truth? Do you think that drive comes from you? You don't own that love. That's the love of the Holy Spirit that loves through you. You must receive that drive as a gift. That's what the Holy Spirit is in our hearts. It is that drive. And I can tell you, I can promise you one thing, that every one of these little children and little babies, they are in love with God. Their hearts are in love with God. Aren't they? You know what they are, because their hearts have this drive inside of them that they didn't decide to have, that moves them towards love, towards being part of family, towards caring, making caring the most important thing in the universe. They have this drive inside of them to love beauty. None of them loves ugliness. They love beauty. None of them wants to tell lies and live in a false world. They love truth. They will, and we see it in a child. We see the drive of the Holy Spirit in a child when they get a little older than that baby. And it explodes in this wonder, this attitude of wonder. And they ask questions because they're filled with wonder and they want to know and understand what's going on. And we can see the drive of the Holy Spirit in their hearts. And pretty soon they're asking more questions than you parents have the time or the knowledge to even answer. There are so many questions because the drive of the Holy Spirit is pulling them to wonder and to get answers and to understand. And that asking questions as a child will grow into finding, when they get older, into seeking the answers to things, but not just getting any old answer. They'll get answers and they'll want to weigh those answers and see which is really the best answer. Yeah, that's a bright idea, but is it the right idea? They will balance, they will weigh those answers to find the true answers. But where did the drive come from? That's the Holy Spirit. That is the gift of the Holy Spirit in their hearts. And if we want to feel the Holy Spirit, all we have to do is feel the drive. And some of you are like myself, you're kind of starting to be veterans in life and the body gets tired. But all you have to do when your body is tired is just feel your interior a little bit and realize your spirit isn't tired. Your body is, but your spirit isn't. It still wants to wonder and to feel awe and to follow and to feel the pull and the tug towards goodness and truth and making the world better and to loving more. That's the drive that is the whole gift of the Holy Spirit. And so sometime in life, we have to ask, am I in love with God? And the answer is obviously yes. The hearts of all these children are in love with God. And what we hope for them is what we hope for ourselves, is that someday they will grow up a little bit and they'll realize that they're in love with God. Because it's one thing to have your heart in love with God, and it's another thing to realize that it's in love with God. And then that changes everything, because what that means is whatever we do in life and wherever we go, we do it hand in hand with God. We're doing everything. It doesn't matter what it is we're doing. We do it hand in hand with God because our hearts are in love with God. And isn't that what we want? Isn't that the thing that we want for these little children? Then we want it for us too. What we want for them, we want for us, is that we realize we are in love with God. And everything we do hand in hand with God.